I was telling Chris and Jonathan, who are of Applause, a little bit earlier about, why we started to call this "Your Talent Matters" and how Medhi and I got together. And it really was really a solution to what I thought was a problem. Was that as an employee benefits specialist, I'm happy to help business owners design and implement plans for their attraction and retention strategies. But there were some things missing, and that was data, frankly. And maybe somebody could let that person in. Oh, I'll do that. There you go.
Or
Okay,
Dwayne's
over
got
to
it, yeah.
you, Dwayne. Yeah, thanks very much. So it was really Medhi and I got together and started to say, well, what more could we do to help business owners attract and retain employees? And he said, well, why don't we add human resources? So over to you, Medhi.
Yeah, cool. So, my name is Rahman. Everyone calls me Medhi. And I've been in HR for the last 25 years, working for some amazing organizations from Best Buy, Future Shop, McDonald's, Publicis. I've been agnostic to industry, but working with, organizations and teams that are as small as 50 people, 30 people, all the way up to, 77,000. And, working with Nick, I really appreciated how Nick really served his customers and his clients. And then from there, I saw like a real opportunity where there's a lot of businesses, small, medium-sized, large enterprises that have aspirations of growing. And I really wanted to help, and I wanted to share a lot of the cool things that these big organizations do, you know, that they do for free, that give a lot of return on investment, and small to medium sized businesses can totally learn from. And so Nick and I are here to help businesses grow, help people, get the most out of the talent that they have in their organizations, help businesses, attract, retain, and engage their staff so that they're more productive and give better, service and customer service or even productivity. So that's a little bit about me and why I'm here. And today specifically, I'm really excited about this idea of continuous listening and really understanding our constituents, our people that are in our teams and our organization, and really understanding anything from like what makes them tick, how they react to things, and then how do we engage them or deliver on those things that they're looking for, so that we can get more productivity. Like I use the example at at Best Buy, we were spectacular. And I mean, not just good, but spectacular at doing continuous listening to our employees, doing surveys, and then acting on those surveys, and then communicating on the actions. Everyone's got to think like these are employees that are not they're hourly paid. They're most of them are casual, not full-time or permanent or part-time, and then they're non-commissioned, yet they're still offering all the services that you need. So they've got to be doing something right. And I really do think it was down to continuous listening by managers, by HR folks, by individuals, and then not only listening, but then actioning and then communicating that actioning. And so I'm really, really, really proud to hang out with Chris today. And we're using this as a case study. This is not the be all and end all. As an HR professional, I want to always be, neutral and objective, right? But I do want to use this one platform as a case study to show this is what organizations can do. And it's really, really simple and easy, but it does deliver a great experience for your employees so that you can drive, productivity.
Growth.
And growth, yeah.
Yes.
Nick, what anything else? Yeah, I know that this.
No, I think that's excellent. Let's just turn it over to Chris, and Chris can introduce Jonathan, and let's get into the demo because I want to see it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Medhi, for all these information. Very insightful. My name's Chris, account manager here at Applauz. Been here for a little bit more than 3 years. Been in sales all my life. Used to work in a recruitment agency. So I've always been in the HR world and had the opportunity to work with this amazing company. So who are we? We are a Canadian-based company here in Montreal, and we've been in the business for the past 16 years. So our platform, we're going to see a little bit of it today, is really based on employee recognition and engagement. How a simple thank you can go a long way and bring engagement, productivity to your employees, to bring that to another level when we're talking about engagement. So that's really what we do. We love to have these conversations with leaders, with people in the HR as Medhi. So very proud and happy to be here today. So thank you a lot, Nick and Medhi. I want to present my colleague so that you guys can see our background. Me and Jonathan, we work at Applauz. So Jonathan, maybe if you want to present yourself.
Sure. Hi, Jonathan, also in Montreal, also working at Applauz for about a year and a bit. I have a background in a specialization in human relations and a graduate in human resource management. Before working here, I worked 5 years for another engagement software that was predominantly a pulse survey approach. Then I helped them build an onboarding software for employee onboarding. And I helped with everything that is a CX journey. So whether it be the from the support all the way to the end of how the users actually use it. And now what we're seeing, especially in the HR world, is that same path being used for the employee journey. So where are the sticky points? What is the communication from the beginning to end? Is it matching? When I'm looking on your website, is it the same thing on your LinkedIn? Is it the same thing when I get into the interview? Is it the same thing after the interview and the managers are saying the same thing? Because as soon as we start noticing those points of interaction and how they are affecting them, that's where the bottom line gets affected. Because as Chris will go into more stats, generally speaking, 1 in 3 new hires will end up leaving, and the cost of that is astronomical. So what we can see with this, with the proper techniques, with the proper engagement, with the proper understanding of the employee journey, we're really going to be able to make a difference.
Thank you for that, Jonathan.
I think that's so key. Sorry, just to get in there,
go ahead.
but it is all about the employee experience and getting in there and getting engaged and feeling like when they get up every day that they're going to a place of work that they value and that values them. So I'm sorry about that, but keep going.
No, that's a very good point, Nick. And again, this is a conversation. It's not really a demo where we want to sell Applauz and show you all the features. Of course, we are a solution if there's an interest, but it's really more a conversation on what me and Jonathan are hearing right now, maybe on what Nick and Medhi are hearing right now in the field, and how we can find solutions together and give you insight on what's working actually. So amazing case studies that we have for you. So the reason a little bit of this call is, and we hate talking about this, is the pandemic, right? We keep on hearing it. We want this to be behind us and just move on. But we need to be aware that the pandemic changed a lot of things, especially in the work environment. There's old school mentality, and where we're at right now in 2023, it's two different spaces, right? So we are talking with a lot of leaders that say, hey, I need your skills for this role, for this job. You need money. Here's a job. Work. Go make it happen. Thank you. So you do your 9 to 5, you go work, and that's what I need. When you're speaking with CEOs, leaders, and we ask them, what is really important for you right now? Why are you approaching us? Well, we just want to know what's going on in the market. We want to know what's out there, right? So we asked them, and Jonathan can speak about it, him and his team. Well, what's important for you? Us, it's customers. And we're speaking with CEOs, with leaders. And we asked them, when's the last time you actually spoke with a customer? And a lot of CEOs or leaders would be, well, it's been, I don't know, 10, 15 years. What you should be saying is your employees. That's the main focus always has to be on employees. So the job of a leader is not being in charge. It's being in charge of it's taking care of the people in his charge or her charge. So that's really what we bring the insight on, because people right now, what they want is not necessarily salary. They're ready to reduce their salary. They're just looking for a healthy place to work. They're looking to be recognized for their contribution to earn a decent living. But leaders and HR departments need to know now where to focus, because everything changed really since the pandemic. We have hybrid environments right now where companies are asking their employees to come back at a minimum of 2 to 3 times a week. So we have leaders saying, hey, thanks a lot for coming in today. Is that a meaningful recognition? Maybe not, because they're obligated to be coming at the office. So that's really a challenge for leaders, because they're not, sorry, go ahead, Mark. Oh, okay, sorry, I thought you wanted to say something, Mark.
I was coughing.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
So that's just an example of what we're seeing. What is a meaningful recognition? We're there to give insight and train them, actually, but they need to be trained a little bit on what's working out, right now in the field. And that's a little something that Jonathan's team, they're part of the engagement specialist team, to train leaders on what is and that's something we're going to see. What is a structured recognition versus a unstructured recognition? What is a meaningful recognition? Maybe if you want to add a little something concerning that, Jonathan.
Sure, it's just a little bit of details on what makes those structured and the unstructured. It's when you're looking at a structured recognition, there's expectations that employees have of their organization at a base minimum, at a foundational. They want to just be noticed for their birthdays and for their work anniversaries. At least at a base minimum. If I spend a year with a company and no one said, hey, good job for that year, well, I'm probably not being noticed, and I'm probably going to be looking elsewhere. But on the other hand, so without talking too much about Applauz specifically, like, we automate those. So relieving tasks of your HR, relieving tasks that you have to do that are either mundane but have great effect, that's something that is important. And on top of that, now we have the unstructured recognitions. And as Chris was saying, there's a big difference between saying, hey, thank you all for coming, and saying, hey, the fact that you all have such a passion for your employee engagement really is going to drive us to make amazing changes. Thank you all for investing in your employees' happiness. Whew. Okay, that's going to have a way bigger effect on you at the end of the day than my first one. And not only that, the visibility of that. And that's what Chris is getting into in terms of hybrid and not hybrid. Before, it was easy. You walk down the hall, you pat someone on the back, say thanks for the good job, but nobody else sees that, and nobody else is having that now. And we've lost the ability to do that. And a software like this, or just knowing that this is an issue that we're seeing, now you have the opportunity to share those and break those silos and create more transparency and visibility. Whether or not you're using Applauz, being cognizant of the fact is already a step in the right direction, because the way people feel, we're going back towards that. We're going back to more face-to-face. We're going back to more hearing voices. We're going back to a customer-centric and employee-centric way of being, not the same way that it was back in the day, but we're going back to basics when it comes to people being people and emotional intelligence.
I'm going to replay this back to you guys, to the Applauz folks, and then for all of us on the call. If I'm an owner of a business or an HR leader, there's a couple things. It's almost a renaissance that's happening right now. We're going back to basics around management. We're going, and we're in the first place we're talking about is there's hygiene things that we need to do. We need to acknowledge people and acknowledge like anniversaries, acknowledge, them, coming in and participating and being engaged. So there's the acknowledgement on some hygiene things. But then when you do that, you're getting better productivity, better performance, better engagement, better commitment, right? The other thing I'm hearing you say, and again, whether you have a software or not, those are things, it's the culture of acknowledgement that we need to go back to. And that's one of the lessons that we're hearing right now. And so just as a reminder to all of us, if I'm going back onto the office or, down the hall, just acknowledging, birthdays, anniversaries, and things like that. Those are some hygiene things. And then on top of that, if you do some more, then you get more productivity. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's
exactly it. Yeah, that's
cool.
I have nothing to add to that. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Here's a little something I want you guys to see. I'm going to share my screen right away. And this doesn't come from us. These are stats that we share with our prospects, with clients. Can everybody see my screen right now? Yes.
Yeah, we don't see the presentation mode. We just see both sides, the slides.
Okay, perfect. Can you see this slide right here, the current situation?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So these are stats that we're showing our clients, we're showing prospects, because there's a cost. Like you were saying, Medhi, there's actually a cost for employees not being engaged. it affects their productivity. So I just want to share a little something with you guys. The current situation, 48% of employees actively job searching or watching for opportunities. These are stats in data of the 2023. 67% of employees are disengaged or actively disengaged with their company. 69% of employees say they would work harder if they felt more appreciated. 47% of employees pinpoint company culture as the main reason for wanting to leave. So we are seeing here, culture is huge. 64% of employees do not feel sufficiently valued by who? By their managers. Like Medhi was saying, it's not only for owners, CEOs, but managers. There's a thinking, an insight that has to be done with managers also. And these are sources that were taken by Gallup, Hayes. This is not from Applauz. These are really stats that we're going to get on Gallup. Another part that we always like to put emphasis on, the true cost, and there's a cost, of employees that are disengaged. It's even worse than an employee that just leaves. And an employee that is disengaged, well, what's the percentage? 67% of employees are disengaged at work. And you see here, average annual cost to our organization per disengaged employee. This is for one employee that is not being productive, that is missing work, that is not leaving, but is not productive. There's a cost, and it's over $17,000 per employee. Average turnover cost to organization per employee resignation. So for an employee that actually leaves you guys, or leaves a company, sorry, 48% of employees say they're actively looking for a new job or are open to one. And the cost of that, of an employee leaving, we're talking about 32,000 employees. So these are just stats that I wanted to show you guys real quickly that we're seeing on the market, because certain employees think that it's organic. Oh, I lost 5, 10, 15 employees. You don't know why. If there's no, there's not a exit interview to know the reasons why, they just think it's organic and people just left. But by people not leaving and still working for the company and being disengaged, you guys saw the cost. There's a cost related to that. And that's a little something that actually is in our leadership training that Jonathan does. I don't know if you want to add something concerning these stats, Jonathan?
Yeah, just a small little thing that kind of ties it together is a lot of what we're seeing both in psychology and in business right now is I really don't like the word quiet quitting, because honestly it's not quiet quitting, it's just people not wanting to be there anymore. It's a coined term, but I don't particularly care for. Suffice it to say, there's quiet quitting and there's burnout. And generally speaking, if I'm not going to be talking so much about the cost of what that's having on your organization, but it's more about who you're going to be hiring. Because what we're seeing in the hiring process right now is that people aren't having the same reactions to their companies. They don't have the same commitment. If I'm interviewing for you and 7 other people, I might not respond after I don't like what I hear or anything else. A lot of what's happening now is culture fit. And that's what we're talking about. What Chris was talking about is when if I'm burnt out, if I had to go on sick leave, if I had to quit, if I'm in tears at one of my jobs and then I'm looking for a new one, I guarantee you that the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that when I go to your company page that the values fit. And that when I get into the interviews, I'm noticing that those values fit. And so what this ties into is the idea that what are you communicating to those employees? How are you making sure that the culture that you're building at your organization, it doesn't have to be today, tomorrow, or the day after, but the desire to, the motivation to, the empathy to hire and bring people on with this idea. I froze, sorry about that. Empathy, engagement, and recognition. When you have all of those there with you, that's going to start building a real impact on your hiring, on your retention, and you'll see over time those people that you are losing, you're not going to have that same rate of loss.
Good point. Medhi, do you want to add something?
No, so I guess like what do we do, right? Like, as if I'm a leader of an organization, In addition to like, like the simple thank yous and pleases and stuff like that, what are some of the other things that we could start doing?
Do you want me to take that, Chris, or do you?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So whether or not you're going to be going with the software Applauz or something else, I'm going to just give you some key things that I see in terms of the past 10 years that I've worked in this industry, that what works and what doesn't work. No matter what, if you are eager to collect data from your employees and you're using a pulse survey, or you're using SurveyMonkey, or you're even having one-on-ones, keep in mind that if you are taking data, or I'm gonna talk with human terms now. If you're talking to someone and asking them how they feel, or you're talking to someone and asking them to give their feedback or opinion, imagine if you're using technology to do that. The idea of taking it in and not giving back is as if you invited them into your office, stone-faced them, took all of it in, stood up, took them to the door, closed the door. They don't know what happened with it. They're not going to give you the feedback in the future. It's going to be even more detrimental. So when you do want to put something like this in place, it can't be, you have to go all in with it. That's one of the things, because you'll hurt your company if you're not going all the way in. You have to actually want to do something with that data, and you have to communicate to them. When you're doing change management, when you're putting anything into a place like this, what you need to do is have that transparency. It doesn't mean you have to tell them everything that's going on, but you as an organization have to know what you're comfortable sharing, and you have to be able to share that with them, because it has to be a collaboration. The whole thing, and Chris is going to go into it with the survey, is that, and Medhi, you talked about it, is the communication part, is that it's cyclical. So you're going to bring it in. I'm asking you for information. I take that information, I disseminate it, I see what's going well, what's going badly. Don't always focus on what's going badly. Promote what's going well. If the communication between you and the managers is going well, promote that. You don't always have to focus on what needs to be fixed, because people need, if every time I call you is for something bad, when you see my name show up on your phone, you're gonna go, I don't want to talk to this guy. Like, you don't want to reinforce that thought process. So share good and bad. Once you collect all that and you give it back to them, you say, hey, based on what you're saying, so now you're in control, based on what you're saying, these are the ideas that we have. What do you guys think? So now you've fed them back the information. They make the decision based on the data that you collected. And then you can then take that and make it into, okay, well, this quarter, we're going to do this. Next quarter, we're going to do this. Next year, we're going to do this. It doesn't matter if it's done tomorrow or in a year from now. What matters is the commitment to doing it, and the communication and the empathy to actually want to do it. So no matter what you're using, that's one of the processes, and that's with a survey, that's with just your managers collecting data, that's with just having a pulse on the floor. Like, you don't need only softwares to do these things. What you just need to do is have the will to see it through and have a plan that spans the whole cycle.
Yeah, I'll add to that, like, in terms of a case study, and I'll give it back to Chris. I know you want to go through a little bit of a demo, but at some organizations, we would just put a chart paper up after we did one-on-ones or surveys, and we would just say, and it would be 2 columns, or 3 columns. You asked, we delivered, and the date, right? And like, the we delivered column, always is empty at the beginning. But then as we do things like change that tile, or, add more bathrooms or whatever it is, right? We start filling that out, and it's like that you asked, we delivered, and it's all based on that feedback.
Take care, Mark. Thank you for being here.
One thing, Medhi, with what you said, visibility. That's what it does. When you have that visibility, then people feel like you're actually invested in it. It's so important.
That's a good point. I want to show you guys a little something what we use as a solution. So again, today, purpose of this call is not to actually show all the features of what our platform can do. By the way, I branded it a little bit with the logo of Nick. So there you go. So this is really what we teach. This is a platform, a social environment, actually, where your culture lives. This is where everything happens. The news of the company, where managers can recognize people in their teams, employees can start recognizing other employees, and everything revolves around the core values of the company. How often does an employee gets to start with a company? They're super excited, they sign their contract, their documents, they remember the four, for example, core values of the company. Go back in a couple of months and ask them, hey, do you remember the core values? I'm seeing certain things that you're doing right now that is not tied with our values. Do you remember? Can you name maybe 2 or 3? They're probably going to forget. And it's normal. That's now with this system that we have in place, engagement platform, where we always put these core values up front. That's something that we like to teach. A lot of companies think that this is a recognition software. We show them that this is an engagement software. Recognition is a piece to get employees engaged. So when they're being recognized, they're being engaged. Quick example real quickly, and then I want to show you guys how the Pulse survey is a huge part of the platform. I was helping one of my colleagues out with an Excel sheet a couple of weeks ago, just to give you an example. And since the pandemic, me, Joe, and all of our colleagues, we work 100% remote. Everybody's work from home. We have an office, but everybody's scattered all over Quebec now, here in Montreal. And I was helping one of my colleagues out with an Excel sheet. Instead of sending me a message in Teams or Slack, an email, a text, she gave me a recognition on our platform, on Applauz, saying, hey, thanks a lot, Chris. You really helped me out. Here's a badge of a core value of our company of Applauz that I think that you embody. What happens is everybody starts commenting on this recognition. Thanks, hey, great job, Chris. And then after a couple minutes, my CEO that I never see came into this recognition and says, great job, Chris. I'm happy to see employees helping other employees. So I'm working from home and I'm like, wait a minute, leadership is actually seeing the good work that I'm doing behind the scene. That brought up my engagement, right? It's not a huge thing, but engagement, when you're being recognized by your colleagues and by managers, by leadership, there's a price to that. And that's what we teach, that's what we always like to put up front. So what I wanted to show you guys, and I'm going to end by showing you this feature. This is one of our favorite features. And it's a huge feature that we have actually in our platform is Pulse surveys. Another quick example I want to give you guys. I'm a guy of examples. I used to work in a big company. We would receive, and maybe you guys even experimented this in another company where you guys were or heard about this. I would receive a big Pulse survey once a year, 300 questions. Comes from the head office in another country or in Toronto. And the head office is in Toronto, and once a year, the Pulse survey, we want to know how you're feeling. So we receive it on a Monday, and you have until Friday, 5 o'clock to fill everything up. So I'm in the sales team, we're all looking at each other like, oh boy, here we go. We keep everything for Friday, 4:30, because we're just answering whatever, ABC, ABC, ABC. Why? 2 reasons. We want to get it over with, because it's too long. And the second thing, we're asking ourselves, is it true that leadership in the head office is Toronto, they're going to read all my 300 answers, myself and all my colleagues, to operate changes for next year? So what happens is people just wanted to get over with. Because you know that, I think you were saying that, Medhi, earlier, there's not change. You're not listening. You're just doing it because you need to do it. So we wanted to avoid that. We created a pulse survey. And I like this term. It's like if we take the pulse of employees on a regular basis to see how engaged you are. How are you actually feeling? And to see if we can operate changes. So inside this platform, there's already predetermined themes. There's predetermined questions. So inside every theme, for example, I don't know, recognition and reward. You go in here, and I want you guys to see how easy it is. And this is another thing. It needs to be easy. It needs to be quick. If not, you lose your employees. So of course, these pulse surveys are confidential. Leaders, managers are never going to get to see who's answering what, but employees just need to click and select the logo that represents how they're feeling towards that question. So management can play with this section here. They can cancel, delete themes that they don't want if they like the theme, but there's certain questions that are not really proper for their environment. They can take off these questions. Of course, it's possible for these companies to create their own themes, add their own questions, and create their environment. So how this works is we're very strong on integration, right? So we can integrate with Teams, with Slack. We use Slack internally. So it's every week. The system, if you activate it, it chooses for you randomly 5 questions only. We're not talking about once a year, 300 questions. Once a week, once every 2 weeks, 5 questions only. And it's a melting pot of, you have one question in one theme, another one in another theme. Jonathan, if I ask you, hey, what are the questions you're having this week? He's going to have 5 different ones. So I'm not going to be biased on what he's actually answering. So we answer these pulse survey. We click on the logo that represents how we're feeling. We do next 5 times. It takes 30 seconds. We're done for the week. But for management, if they want to utilize this tool, it can really become an ally. Why? Because you're not getting some stats once a year that you had, like Jonathan was saying, silent quitting. You don't know why you lost some employees. You think it's organic, like I was telling you guys. You see certain tendencies and what's going on quickly. So the system permits you to actually say, I want to see after 30 days, actually, what all my employees are saying. 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, not once a year. We want to see rapidly what's going on. I want to be a little, as a manager or a leader, I want to be a little bit more granular, more specific. While the system even permits you to go by department and only see what those departments are saying, those teams, those roles. So even if it's confidential, and as a whole, we have an amazing culture score, let's say in here, but we're going in the sales team, and man, for the past 3 months, we're scoring low in that department. We're scoring high in all the departments, but in sales, we're scoring low. Is it a problem with the employees, or maybe something we need to address with the manager before we lose some employees? These managers need to know and acknowledge that, like we were saying, there's a cost of losing an employee, and there's a cost of an employee being disengaged. So these are stats that we can see quickly. You can follow right here on the left to see the total responses month after month. And the point that actually managers really appreciate in leaders is you can see, have a glance quickly after 30 days, all the themes that you're scoring very high. Continue doing what you're doing right now in these themes, good. When it's in yellow, people are pretty neutral, right? There's positive, there's negative feedback. And like every company, you're gonna have the color red. You actually need, and you want to know, what do I have to work on quickly with my managers? Well, you can select those themes and see, this is my demo environment. I don't have a lot of stats, but let's say the amount of work I need to do on a day-to-day is generally reasonable. As a manager, I want to see what are saying my employees. Well, you can see the people that are not the people, but you can see the percentage of people maybe that are neutral or strongly disagree. On this specific question, did you want feedback? Employees anonymously can put some feedback. So this section here, when it's activated, it's rapidly. I want to have the pulse of the whole company, but I want to be more granular and see what's going on in the company. So that's a little something I wanted to show you, and I'll end by showing you a little something that we have on the newsfeed. And after, the mic is yours, Joe, if you want to add something on how you train a little bit leadership when you do leadership training on this. There's a little section here that I really appreciate that we have here on the newsfeed. It's creating a poll. So again, keep in mind that this is a fun platform where your culture lives. So it can be something fun as where you guys want to go at the restaurant, maybe a couple drinks, go for coffee, social committee, Christmas party, what you guys want to do. And what we're teaching a lot of our clients is maybe and I think Medhi, you were saying this, you're asking questions, but are you showing your employees that you're actually reading and ready to operate changes on things that you have control on quickly? So what we're seeing right now, and I'll give you an example that I always like to give during my demos. Here at Applauz, we were scoring low a couple months ago in wellness. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. So as an employee, I would receive these questions every week. And when it would be on wellness, I was like, I think my company can do better. We actually we practice what we preach? We should do a little bit more on wellness. And I would put a negative feedback, and I wasn't the only one. And what happened is our CEO created actually a little poll here on the newsfeed that we all have access to. And the poll name was wellness. In the question, he said, myself and all the managers, we sat down and we noticed that as a company, we're scoring low in wellness. Here are 10 ideas that we have for you guys. Please go vote. We'll give you guys 7 days to go vote on this. And the most popular answer, that's what we're going to put in place for the next quarter. So as an employee, I was like, wait a minute. They're actually reading my answers on things that they have, like Medhi was saying, control on quickly, and they're ready to operate changes. There's always going to be employees that are going to be start whining on salary, compensation, insurance, but on things that you have control on, show them. It's going to encourage them to really answer and want to give them the strength of continuing answering these questions. So that's a little something I wanted to put up front that I personally appreciate, that our clients appreciate, that we have on in our platform, and that can really be beneficial if you want to use it. Joe, the mic is yours if you want to add.
Yeah, sure. No, it just summarizing that like last piece that is the part where you can communicate back to them. That's a cycle that we were talking about. That's how you can do it using our software. It's really about showing again that you're giving us information, so we want to actually do something with it. What I want to add to that is, if you are currently using the annual surveys, be careful in regard to what changes you put in place based on those surveys, because generally speaking, the amount of time it takes to tabulate those and get the information back, a lot of the time, the people who were detractors in that survey are now gone from the organization, and the changes you're going to be putting in place will affect the people who said I had no problems with that. And so in actuality, a lot of times what we're going to be seeing is you invest a lot of money in these surveys, you collect all this data, which you take it with a grain of salt with as much that you got in there, and then we affect change on things that possibly didn't need to be invested in. So I caution when using the annual survey to take it with a grain of salt, go back, take that feedback and give it back to them and ask, are we still feeling this? Are we still doing that? Because it's a slippery slope to make decisions based on something so large and ambiguous.
And so what I'm hearing you say, for all of us running organizations, is that the movement now is going from these annual surveys, these large surveys, to more bite-sized surveys more frequently. And it gives us a chance as leaders to respond, acknowledge and make differences, and then and have people see that we're doing something about it. So, these bite-sized surveys, these pulse surveys are the new trend right now.
Exactly. And what I'm seeing specifically, and we were talking about the trainings, we go through this, my team goes through with the managers, with the employees, explaining all the processes, because the transparency, again, is very important on who's seeing what. But what I'm seeing a lot with my HR professionals that I work with and with the execs is the not knowing where to start or knowing exactly where to start. And what's nice is when you do that, you can either get a pulse, like we're talking about, on the full thing, and then dive deeper into them, or using a software like this, we know that right now, the reason that you're seeking out a software like this is, let's say, recognition. That's one of the areas that you need to improve. Well, turn off all the other themes, choose just recognition, collect data just on recognition, communicate to the organization saying, hey, you know what? We noticed this is what's going on based on what you're saying. So we're going to dive deeper. It's very important that you give us as much information as possible, because you're going to be affecting what changes you're going to see in Q2 or Q3 or Q4. And so the importance of the pulse survey is less about collecting the data, but more about what you do with it. Diagnosing is only half of the what you need to do. You can diagnose, but you need to do something after. You need to prescribe it. You need to go in and you got to create that change with what it is, and they have to be part of that change.
Very good point. Thank you, Jonathan.
I just wanted to reach out to a couple of people who are in the chat who don't have their video on, which is absolutely okay. If they had any questions, to put them in the chat, and then we can do that, because we're getting pretty close to wrapping this up. So
that's it. We're pretty much done on our end. But if I can add it, and by saying this is, there's a lot of good platforms out there, and a lot of people ask us why Applauz, why Applauz versus another platform. We always like to say, our job is not to sell you licenses to use the platform and let's talk when it's time to renew, if you want to renew with us. We're your HR partners. That's how we see ourselves, as HR partners. So there's a big process of onboarding, but a training. Again, there's always a hype. with platforms, recognition and engagement platforms, right? Everybody's like, oh, cool. I'm going to recognize my colleague. There's a system of GIF, of emojis. It's very, very hip. It's really fun. Then it dies down. The reason why? Because if managers, leaders are not implicated in this platform, and to give an example, it's not going to be a success. So that's why we/Jonathan's team is very, very on point on trainings. It's a good training of 45 minutes to an hour. We record these training. We can send the recording, and to show them the science of how to utilize this tool. We show leaders, right? Managers, HR teams, how to utilize this tool. Like we were saying earlier, what is a meaningful recognition? We're seeing horror stories sometimes like, hey, like I was telling you guys at the beginning, managers, hey, thanks a lot for coming in today. You're obligated to come in. That's not a recognition. Thank you for smiling. Okay, thank you. But what is a meaningful recognition? Something structured that I want to give to employees for them to feel good, feel engaged, because always keeping in mind, there is a cost for employees that are disengaged, right? So that's something that we always like to put up front. We are your HR partners.
Well, and I was told, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys also, when they do a pulse survey, you'll actually help them interpret the results as well.
Jonathan?
Yes, so we don't leave you alone with anything. We're there throughout the process. It's not an onboarding like certain other organizations. When you onboard with us, we have 30, 90, 180, 360 reviews with you. We're always there to go through any of the results. We have tons of free resources online also for that. But if ever you want to go deeper into it, I definitely have my clients reach out to me. If I'm not reaching out to them, they reach out to me about, hey, I have this result, what do I do next? And I help them go in to interpret it with them, ask, did you do these things? Who's saying it? How are we doing it? And we really go deeper into the results and find out why and what to do next.
Well, it's really important to have the people behind the product, right?
That's a very good point. And if I can add something real quickly, I think something that's important too is our team, Jonathan's team, give benchmark on what's working out with clients that we have in the same industry as our clients. So if we're talking to a manufacturing company, that's totally something different, that are going to have obstacles that maybe an IT company would not have. For example, manufacturing company employees are not in front of a computer. So how can they recognize their colleagues? How can they see that their managers recognize their colleagues? So we have a mobile app for that. So it's really benchmark on the industry that the clients are in that becomes very important also.
You want to wrap that up and take it home, Medhi?
Yeah, so first off, thank you everybody for being here. Thanks Nick for organizing. Thanks for all the leaders that took a moment out of their day for being here. It's really great. And, I know that you're doing this for your employees and for your business. So, good on you. Thank you for the folks at Applauz for showcasing, their product. And again, it's one of many products out there. But, I think the takeaways here are a couple. One, if I'm a leader of an organization, listening to my employees, taking a survey pulse of how they're feeling, it's extremely important, right? I think that's the starting point. If I already have mechanisms in place, then maybe it's now having them more frequently. So if I'm an HR professional on the call, I'm having them at certain points in an employee life cycle. So maybe after the first 90 days, or after events, or coming into events. So making decisions based on data and having data more frequently, that's extremely important. And then I think the last thing I'm hearing as a theme from today is whatever tool that you have. Again, if it's one-on-ones that you're doing, in your analog body, or you're using a digital tool, right? It's still about listening and then acting. What am I hearing, and what am I doing based on that? So I do appreciate us leveraging technology, but I know that not all of us can afford it. But in all the organizations that I've been in, when we do use technology, it does make it a little bit faster, easier, and help us stay organized. So that, and then helps us even part of the benchmarking, compete against other organizations. And I know the employees that I've worked with appreciate, when we give data or feedback based on data, or make actions based on data. So, thank you, everybody. The call to action, very simple. If you guys could follow us, on LinkedIn, or watch our YouTube series, Your Talent Matters, or just, if you need an appointment with us to understand what we could do to help support your business, you can check out yourtalentmatters.ca, or you could follow Nick and myself, and we'd be glad to help you. And if you're looking to, learn more about Applauz, we'll make sure that you get the contact information for the folks there. Again, in my 25 years of doing this, this is one of the tools that I do appreciate and like, and it is a little bit different than some of the other ones that I've had. So we'd love to talk to you about that.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Nick. Thank you, Medhi.
You're welcome. Thanks for everyone for
No problem.
coming.
Take care, guys.
Okay, bye. Have a great
Bye.
rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.